Tell me, O Muse, of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide after he sacked the famous town of Troy. So, the Odyssey was this epic poem written by Homer after the Greek Dark Ages. It, along with its prequel, the Iliad, are but two of an 8-part saga recounting the tales surrounding the Trojan War. They are two of the oldest stories in Western literature, and their plots encompass the essence of what it means to be human. If you want a summary of either, I highly recommend watching Overly Sarcastic Productions' animated summaries of them here. If you don't want to watch their awesomely detailed and exciting summaries, then I guess I'll have to tell you here. Their respective plots are You Steal My Wife, I Take Your Life, and Please, Can I Just Go Home? Yep, those are the foundations of Western literature. Love triangles and homesickness. But here, I want to talk about how these stories got to the present, because it wasn't as easy as a copy-pasted Wikipedia article. To start, there was the actual Trojan War, that historians are pretty sure actually happened, though without the divine intervention, monsters, and giant wooden horses. Archaeologists in the 19th century found city ruins in the area described as Troy, dating back to that time period, so we're pretty sure that the war existed. As with every war, the soldiers who survived and came home brought with them millions of war stories, most of which exaggerated for ego inflation. They told their wives and sons, who in turn told the next generation about the heroics of their ancestors, continuing for centuries before Homer was even born. Moving forward, I want you to remember how massive these epic poems are. At 300,000 words, they're longer than a Game of Thrones. And, in ancient Greek, it all rhymed. With 6 other parts of the series, someone in every generation had to remember the entire thing, word for word, to pass down to the next generation as much as he could remember. Sheesh. No wonder Homer decided to finally write it down. Who knows how many times the stories were changed even further during these centuries, and how much is forgotten to history. But even when Homer decided to write it down, there were still problems. The writing material available at the time, papyrus, was extremely fragile and would dissolve entirely if it got wet. Slight changes in humidity could cause the ink to bleed, so scrolls were kept in dry, sealed basements most of their life, remaining unread. Oh, and the entire series was handwritten. Every single copy required hours upon hours of scribe work, and the product was easily destroyed, so not many were made, or not many survived to modernity. Plus, not to point fingers at anyone, but classical empires did have a habit of burning libraries, each of which could destroy entire collections in a day. Anyway, you get the point. Handwritten copies were hard to come by. Then what? Even though Rome did burn the Library of Alexandria, which probably held a significant percentage of humanity's collective knowledge at the time, the Romans were really good at cultural appropriation. Virgil, the Roman poet who has a cameo as a tour guide in Dante's Inferno, wrote his own sequel, the Aeneid, where he copied and merged the contents of the original duology into his own that explained the founding of Rome. Wow, this actually is Star Wars. So after the new director took the franchise and catered it to a new audience, like J.J. Abrams, the Homeric epic saga was actually pretty popular for a while, spreading across the entire empire. But then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. When Rome fell. For that meant people had to worry about barbarians at their door, instead of stories for a while. The story of the traveler who got lost lost for a couple centuries, until the Islamic Golden Age. It was the 6th century at this point, and the Abbasid Caliphate wanted their own version of the Library of Alexandria, known as the Baghdad House of Wisdom. In this house, teams of translators were put to work to translate all of the classics into Arabic, and it is because of their efforts that we even know about people like Plato and Aristotle. They even wrote their own fan fictions, like Virgil did, with Sinbad the Sailor, where characters from the Iliad and the Odyssey made cameos alongside Sinbad. During the Fourth Crusade, where Christians sacked Constantinople, a Christian city, Latin scholars were able to get access to the original Greek texts and translated them into Latin, though few of those papyrus copies survived. During the Renaissance, suddenly loads of Italian scholars had access to the Arabic translations from the Crusades, which they translated into Latin, this time using parchment instead of papyrus. Utilizing the advantage of the printing press, stronger copies of the works were readily accessible to thousands across Europe in the coming centuries. One of the first translators of these Leviathans into English was Thomas Hobbes, the philosopher himself, in 1675. We also have English copies from Alexander Pope, who translated the poems in iambic pentameter, that thing Shakespeare uses, in 1725. And even Lawrence of Arabia translated his own copies into English in 1932. In 1922, James Joyce's Ulysses retold the tale in 20th century Dublin. Knowing all of this chaos and struggle the texts have endured in their odyssey to modernity, one can truly appreciate the significance and weight of the tales as old as time. Or maybe they're just stories of love and war, and I'm thinking a bit too much about them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below, or share this video with friends. See you in the next video.